So it can't be a surprise with the success the Bears have had on the defensive side of the ball over the past couple of seasons, specifically in 2018. They were an elite unit. Elite, no question. That defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, was going to get some type of head coach interest somewhere. And even with the trend being towards young, offensive-minded guys, or more specifically, guys that have either worked under Sean McVay or shook hands with him or saw his penis in the bathroom one time, that apparently qualifies you to be an NFL head coach now. You would have thought somebody along the way, with the 8 or so opportunities out there, one of those teams was going to stumble into making a solid hire by giving Fangio finally a crack at being a head coach in the NFL. We had to know what was happening. Now, there was a part of me that thought maybe the opportunities out there wouldn't be that outstanding for him, and maybe he would continue to get passed over. Maybe the Bears would step up a lot in terms of what they would pay him, and maybe somehow, some way he could stay. But the realistic thing was he was bound to leave. He needed to leave. He deserved the opportunity to leave and be in charge of his own show. Flat out. No ill will. No disrespect or shade is going to be thrown at Vic Fangio by me for going and becoming the Denver Broncos' new head coach. None. I expect him to do great things with that defense. Hopefully, John Elway will get the hell out of his way a little bit. It remains to be seen. But he deserved the opportunity. That's what it's about. These guys do well, and they move on to the next big opportunity. And then you hope to find the next guy that can do the same thing. So obviously, when we look at the Bears going now thinking about the 2019 season, knowing that there was very little chance that everything was going to remain exactly the same. The Bears were incredibly fortunate already from a health standpoint to have so few key players miss significant time this year. You feel like they're tempting fate going into next season. But beyond that, you're talking about a new coach. And was it going to be an internal guy that was going to replace Fangio, such as Ed Donatel, or was it going to be somebody from the outside? Well, we got that answer, and the new defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears is going to be Chuck Pagano. Like, that's a first initial reaction. And that's not a reaction of hate. That's not a reaction of disappointment. It's just a reaction of the reality. Like, the name Chuck Pagano is not going to inspire a lot of confidence, specifically when you think about the disaster that ultimately ended up being the last few years of his tenure there in Indianapolis. And sure, some of that you can blame on the injuries to Andrew Luck, but that can't be all of it. And his defenses in Indy largely stunk. And for a defensive-minded guy that was supposed to have such a great grasp of the defensive side of the ball, his defenses were terrible. There's one thing if the offense stinks, especially without your marquee franchise, elite-level quarterback. There's another thing when the area that you're supposed to know the most about stinks. And you can blame the general manager, Ryan Grigson, who most certainly at that time deserved some of the blame for the crappy roster that he compiled and assembled. But we're talking about, ultimately, you got to have a guy that can get the most out of the players that he has. And you didn't see that out of Pagano in the last couple of years in Indy. You just didn't, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So when you think about it just in terms of that perspective, this is kind of a lame-ass, uninspired hire. It is. But when you think about it bigger picture, I am okay with it. I'm not here to guarantee that this is going to succeed. It's hard to know. Pagano could come in, and then next year you got 3 guys on the Bears defense end up with season-ending injuries. Would that be Pagano's fault? No. But it could be the situation that he's dealt with. You don't know. But you know this much, is that Pagano was a guy that his players generally respected in Baltimore as a defensive coordinator, in Indianapolis as the head coach. The last time he was actually a defensive coordinator in the league, it was for all of one season. That was in Baltimore. And in that 2011 season, the season before they won the Super Bowl, that Ravens defense was elite. You had guys like Terrell Suggs and Ed Reed and obviously bang, bang, shoot 'em up Ray Lewis. You had a team full of stars, Haloti Ngata, so on and so forth. And Pagano got a lot out of those guys, and they played very, very well. And another year later, they're in the Super Bowl winning it all. So when you think about it from a pure defensive coordinator standpoint, the last time Pagano only had to focus on the defensive side of the ball, he had a lot of talent in Baltimore and got a lot out of him. He now comes to a situation here in Chicago where you could argue with the combination of the youth, the talent level at all three levels of that defense, they are better than that 2011 Ravens defense. You've got Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman. You've got Khalil Mack. You've got Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan, and even if you want to throw in Leonard Floyd and some of the progression he showed late in the year. And you go to the secondary, Kyle Fuller played at an all-pro level this year. Eddie Jackson played at an all-pro level this year. Amukamura is a solid number 2 corner. You've got guys, all three levels of that defense that can really play. And Pagano being a 3-4 guy, you're not doing a ton fundamentally to shake up the basic form and fundamentals of that defense. Sure, there are going to be new wrinkles and there are going to be new things done, but they don't have to fundamentally change the way they do things, which I like about this hire. You can continue to put guys in good situations that are best suited to get the most out of them, and I like that. You're also bringing in a guy, Pagano, who probably has the itch to want to be a head coach again in the NFL. I think he's like, late 50s, early 60s. So a season or two with that Bears top-flight defense, and he keeps them as a top-flight defense, he's going to get another head coaching opportunity perhaps because he's well-liked and respected. So you could get a Chuck Pagano coming off of a year away where he could reevaluate and kind of soul-search a little bit, freshened up, only focusing on the defensive side of the ball with a lot of talent to work with. There are a lot of things that suggest that this could indeed be a very successful decision, a very successful hire for the Chicago Bears. And even if you say you let Adrian Amos walk in free agency, how much of an impact is that really truly to this Bears defense? Even if you let Bryce Callahan go, he had a great year as a nickel corner, but once again, he got hurt. Big surprise. You could bring a Sheriff McManus and put him in that role, and you don't lose that much. All the core pieces are young. Like you could even argue Khalil Mack, being in the prime of his career, has room to get better, and he certainly can. Akeem Hicks can get a little better. Goldman can get better. Roquan certainly can get even better. And he was really good as a rookie. Leonard Floyd has room to grow. Kyle Fuller still has room to grow. The point I'm getting at here is you have a young core of this defense that is either just entering their prime or not even in their prime yet. Like potentially this Bears defense might not have played their best defensive football. And now you're bringing in a guy with some previous chops as a defensive coordinator where when he worked with a talented unit years back, they were successful. This unit has more talent on it. It could be even more successful. While the name itself, when you think about him as a head coach, doesn't exactly inspire you or get you giggly tits, as a defensive coordinator, looking at the reality of the situation, what he comes into and what it represents, I'm just fine with Chuck Pagano as the Bears defensive coordinator.